Welcome back to the Naval News segment. My name's Aaron from Subbrief. Our first story comes to us from Naval News, a great piece written by Mr. Typhon Osbrecht. He writes, Iran boost IRCG's Navy's swarm attack capabilities. According to the Iranian news outlet IRIB News, the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, IRGC Navy, received 110 indigenously made combat speedboats on December 11th during a ceremony in Bandar Abbas. The IRGC's chief commander, Major General Hossein Salami, was the chief guest of the event, which hosted high-profile military officials. Speaking on the occasion of the event, General Salami underlined the benefits of the high-speed capability. Quote, "This is the 7th delivery of such vessels. Their speed has climbed from 55 knots to 70 and 90 knots, with the next stage reaching 110 knots. These boats are equipped with missiles and rockets and are capable of operating efficiently under the IRGC's indigenous radar network." So he's referring to the ground radar network that looks out over the straits. They can operate and get coordination via radio with these radar operators. A lot of GCI top-down coordination going on. And the speeds of these boats are pretty incredible. However, I doubt they have anything that can reach 90 knots over water. That would be pretty incredible to have a military boat do something like that. You're getting up into racing speeds whenever you're reaching speeds that fast. These vessels are expected to conduct naval and logistical operations in the southern waterways around the Arvand River as Khuzestan, and specifically to oppose any threats in the Persian Gulf and the Sea of Oman. And you can see a great picture there. Taking credit to K-Barge Al-Hafar's Twitter for that. Those are the new boats on their little trailers. Last May, the IRGC held a similar event to commission 112 manned and unmanned speedboats capable of launching rockets and missiles. In this year's procurement, it observed some of the boats are armed with lightweight torpedoes. The IRGC describes these vessels as having a very good hydrodynamic capability, high speed, suitable maneuverability, very low radar cross-section. While high offensive power has significant impact on improving IRGC's Navy combat capability, the Persian Gulf region over the Straits of Hormuz. So that's where they're going to operate these. We're going to get into the author's opinion here in a second, but I want to bring up the map. Right here it is. So Iran created a new base last year right here in Sirik, which is the closest point of land between or the shortest distance across the Straits of Hormuz here. So they're going to station a lot of these boats out of here. Keep in mind, this entire waterway is covered by, radar. They can see anything coming in and out of it. And these boats will be operating heavily in this area. All right, let's go back and read the author's opinion of Iran's defense doctrine. He writes, Iran naval doctrine is guarded towards engaging in marine guerrilla warfare against a technological superior adversary, perhaps the U.S. Navy or other regional states. Iran has created a strategy to keep opposing navies out of the Persian Gulf, focusing on strategically critical Strait of Hormuz, which can be described as a choke point. Absolutely. Then he talks about the new naval base that was opened up last year. Provides, a place to harbor the ships and has better surface and aerial control over the strait. This is geographically a better position for them to operate out of than the Bandar Abbas or Keshem Island. He continues to write, Iran's Gulf defense plan is multi-layered, requiring simultaneous use of air, ground, and naval weapons to saturate enemy defense systems. This tactic aims to deter opponents by posing a significant threat to them, and it makes it impossible to penetrate the Gulf without incurring significant losses to combatants. As a result, the Iranians have acquired a huge armament of asymmetric naval equipment, including naval mines, midget submarines, hundreds of armed speedboats, anti-ship cruise missiles on land and sea, UCAVs, and so on. Swarm attacks utilizing manned and unmanned speedboats can act as a backbone for deterring opposing surface forces. Iran frequently displays these capabilities in this area. With speedboat parades, Iran conducts military drills in the Gulf and elsewhere in the country on a regular basis to boost the readiness of armed forces. Here's some great photos of those speedboats using rockets. There's a rocket attack here from IRGC Bolt Assault. Analysis to naval enthusiasts may find it amusing to compare a speedboat to a destroyer. However, evaluating the capabilities and assets on paper can lead us astray from doing real-world examination, because naval warfare is not a cage fight. It is more appropriate to compare forces and compositions to make assessments based on capability with the geographic location, performance of weapons and sensors in the area. Of course, naval tactics can be adapted in Laurel Seas. So I do agree with the point that the swarm attack using large number of very fast vehicles can be very effective. I mean, let's not underestimate these things. Just because this isn't a destroyer with a bunch of surface-to-surface missiles and radars and sensors, that they're not capable. Their capability is in their speed and in their number. The sheer number of boats that they can put to sea is in the hundreds. And here we have a capture from a video of one of their perhaps naval parades or naval exercises. You can see the number of craft they have in the water, all moving at very high speeds. There's no doubt that these boats are very fast. I only question the 90 knot range is really pushing it for me. But it's not impossible. It could be true. All right, so there's several approaches to defeat a swarm threat. Let's talk about the defense side of this equation. For several years, the United States Navy has explored swarm countermeasures. The littoral combat ship were outfitted with surface-to-surface missiles, SSMs, allowing them to launch Lockheed Martin-built AGM-114L longbow Hellfire missiles. However, because these ships can fight 3 or 4 boats at once, the new tactics were designed to overcome swarm attacks and danger. And there's a great photo of one of these new long-range longbow missiles. Long range for a very short range missile is my point. They gave it some extra range for naval use. And here he is firing a longbow Hellfire missile from an Independence variant littoral combat ship, flies towards a target during a missile range test. Very cool. Okay, to successfully resist swarm attacks, a layered defense strategy is required. Incoming assault boats should be destroyed before they are within effective range of their weapons. As a result, defeating this threat requires multi-pronged approach that includes unmanned systems such as UAVs, USVs, and loitering munitions, air assets, guided missiles, lasers, and so on. On the outer layer, armed drones can be utilized that can provide early warning. That's really key to this, is you want to begin this attack against them as soon as possible because there's so many of them. Small strike operations. Armored helicopters can locate and attack targets more quickly if they're discovered and conveyed by other assets such as drones and ship-based sensors. So we can have helicopters out there with some of these longbow or guided missiles to begin the attack, because you don't need a big warhead. You just need a lot of warheads to take out these incoming swarms. RIBs and armed USVs can also play an important defensive role in small boat attacks by interfering and engaging with threats. So this would be like, a small arms engagement against incoming boats. Another method of engaging boats is the ship launch loitering munitions. According to a recent contract awarded to Raytheon, U.S. Navy intends to utilize these loitering weapons on USVs and UUVs. So we can have already weapons in the air, literally loitering, waiting for a command to attack or a series of events that triggers an automatic attack from these loitering munitions. All of these efforts can be aided by Air Force assets, which can not only be used to engage boats at sea, but also bomb boats back at the base. That's really where you want to attack these boats if you decide to do that, is take out their facilities, take out their ability to refuel, repair, rearm, take that out first, and they might get one punch in, but they're certainly not going to get a second. And if you do that initially, they may not even get the first one. Anyway, so what do you guys think about this? Iran's commitment to this swarm attack capability, they're getting on average 2 deliveries a year of about 100 boats, a little bit more than 100 boats, greatly increasing their swarm attack capability. I see this as a real threat to maritime traffic in the Straits of Hormuz. Do not be fooled that just because it's a small boat with a gun on it, and in this case a couple anti-ship missiles, that it's not dangerous. It certainly is. And I would say this is cause for concern. Maybe we need to increase the number of guided missiles on our ships, because each one of these is going to take a guided missile. It doesn't need to have a big warhead, doesn't need to be a harpoon, doesn't need to be a tomahawk, but it needs to we're going to need to have a lot of them if we're going to defend against these kinds of attacks. All right, let's move on to the next story. President Putin and Xi cement partnership in face of Western pressure. This story comes as a surprise to no one. 8 days after President Putin had his video conference talk with President Biden, he goes over to China and does the same thing with them. And they come up with a agreement to cement a partnership against the West. Now, we had talked about this happening on this channel months ago, and some of you out there said, no, Russia and China have too much, that they don't like about each other, that they're never going to come together. And guess what? They're coming together, because one thing that they can agree on is both sides, as much as they don't like each other, they really don't like the Americans. So based on that premise, this is what happened. Credit to Reuters for writing this piece. Moscow, December 15th, Russia and China should stand firm in rejecting Western interference and defending each other's security interest. Presidents Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping agreed in a video call on Wednesday. Their conversation 8 days after Putin spoke to U.S. President Joe Biden in a similar format underscore how shared hostility to the West will bring Moscow and Beijing closer together. Quote, at present, certain international forces under the guise of democracy and human rights are interfering with the internal affairs of both China and Russia and brutally trampling on international law and recognized norms of international relations. China's state-run Xinhua news agency quoted Xi as saying, quote, China and Russia should increase their joint efforts to more effectively safeguard security interests of both parties. So this is the beginning, I think, of a legal treaty between these two. I think this is what this is going to lead to, is that they will at the very least commit to a defensive pact between China and Russia. And that pact will have more, I think, influence on the world and world events than NATO had during the Cold War. And I say that because China, unlike NATO, is being very expansive, right now. Right now, NATO's not expansive, even though there's members that still want to get into it. We stopped the expansion, shortly after the 90s, I think it was. We haven't allowed any more members in. But China now is looking to expand. It still claims Taiwan is a province of China, for one, and it's looking to expand its influence southwards into the South China Sea. So, they're trying to, ensure that the Americans will not use military force to stop them from doing that by partnering with Russia. Russia also wants to reunite Ukraine with Russia, because Ukraine and Russia have a lot in common in terms of culture and history. And so they want to bring, Ukraine back into the Russian fold. Putin does that specifically. He's made comments to this year. So by working together, China can get what it wants without going to war, and so can perhaps Russia get what it wants without too much damage in terms of economic sanctions, if they can find somebody that will, on the Security Council, like China is for the UN, veto any kind of economic sanctions against Russia from a UN perspective. They'll have that. Plus, China for Russia would be a great trade partner if they didn't have anybody else to trade with. Both those countries are geographically very large. They both have a lot of people, a lot of industry, and so they can support each other if they have no one else to go with. So economic sanctions and those types of, carrot and stick approach to diplomacy will be less effective with an agreement between these two countries. Let's get back to the piece. The Kremlin aide Yuri Yushakov told reporters that Xi has offered support to Putin for his push to obtain binding security guarantees for Russia from the West, saying that he understands Moscow's concerns because they both want to be expansionistic. And so they have similar plights with the West. He said the pair also expressed a negative view for the creation of a new military alliance, such as AUKUS partnership between Australia, Britain, and the United States, and the Indo-Pacific Quad, which is another alliance of Australia, India, Japan, and the United States. Because of these military agreements, they're looking for, okay, who are our friends? And China knows that it really doesn't have any friends, but there's someone who's doing in the West, from a Chinese perspective, what they're trying to do in the East. And that's expand their influence, their culture, their borders. and that's Russia. So back to the piece, pressure to call. The call highlighted the ways which Russia and China are drawing on each other's mutual support in a time of high tension in their relations with the West. China is under pressure over human rights, and Russia is accused of threatening behavior towards Ukraine. Kremlin said Putin briefed Xi on his conversation with Biden, in which the U.S. president warned Russia against invading Ukraine, which Moscow denies its planning. They're still denying that. Putin set out his demands for the security pledge. So real quick about the invasion of Ukraine, whether or not it's going to happen or not. You remember a week or two ago, we showed you these photos. They're amassing great numbers of troops near the border of Ukraine. They're not right on the border, but it's very close. We've counted in excess of 30 battalion tactical groups now, including an amphibious invasion force that's in the peninsula of Crimea there. Now, it's possible that this is all bluster, and that's what Russia is kind of going with right now, saying, hey, these troops are in our territory. We're just moving them to these, locations. This is not a staging for an invasion, even though that's exactly what it looks like. So they can go one of two ways. They could go ahead and invade Ukraine next year, like I expect them to do, or they could, because of the sanction threats, not do that. And that will be a huge victory for the West, because moving this amount of troops, and there's a lot more than just here in the picture, is very expensive and time consuming for the Russian economy. So this would be an economic victory if Russia was being belligerent like this and then gained nothing from it. Putin doesn't gain anything. Their economy has to pay for all this movement around these exercises. And they don't get anything in return except a lot of animus from the West, a lot of warnings saying, don't do this. We're watching you, and other countries have, come in too. The UK, Germany have all come in and said, hey, the only people that have been on the fence are France, about the Ukraine situation. But I think France will come around. So we will see how this goes. But I want to reiterate here, I think there will eventually be, there's no timeline here, but eventually be a written agreement, whether it's a defensive pact or a treaty, whatever form it's going to take, between Russia and China, because it makes sense for both those countries to become friends and strengthen relationships with each other. So look for that. Keep an eye open for that. The invasion of Ukraine, I still think it's going to happen. Let's hope I'm wrong. I would love to be wrong about that. That would be okay. Some very important other news. Let's talk about the WarZone. This great piece written by Thomas Nudik. Finland is going to buy 64 of the F-35 fighters for its military. So congratulations to Finland. All the Lockheed shareholders say, yay. Yay! All right. The Taliban over there in Afghanistan struggling to govern because they have spent years fighting and not governing, and they're running out of money. And now they're seeking to, build ties now with former countries that they were fighting, like the United States. Not because they like us, but because they need money. And I think one of the best things the United States has done against non-state actors is not go to war with them. Just declare peace and let them fail on their own. And that's what's happening to the Taliban. Removing our troops from Afghanistan and stopping the conflict between our country and the Taliban has been the most devastating thing we've done to them in 2 decades. And we should continue to seek peace with them, because they will not stand on their own. They cannot. They're not capable. So this is a devastating situation that they're in. And good luck to them. Back to the war zone. Damaged submarine USS Connecticut appears in San Diego after secret journey from Guam. This another piece written by Tyler Rogaway. Has some great pictures here of the submarine coming in. And here you can see a very clear shot right there of the sonar dome being completely gone. They surface transited all the way across the Pacific, over 6,000 miles, with no sonar dome, which is bonkers to me, but hey, good job. Let's see. Tyler writes, the badly damaged Seawolf fast tech nuclear submarine Connecticut, SN-22, has just appeared in San Diego after making covert transit. All but certainly sailing the entire way on the surface. It has been staged at the island for around 2 months following its collision with an underwater seamount. in the South China Sea on October 2nd. Thanks to our friends at Warship Cam. So make sure you guys follow Warship Cam over there on Twitter. They got this. They spotted and identified the submarine entering San Diego Bay on the San Diego webcam. We also get a far clearer look at the damage of the prize submarine. The entire sonar dome is indeed missing, like was earlier reported, but now that you can see it more clearly, everybody can agree now that it is gone. And there's the actual Twitter page of Warship Cam. So full credit to them, man. Those guys did great. There's another Twitter site. I don't want to get his name wrong, but I believe it's at CJR1321. And I really hope I got that right. He posted some great photos as well that I used in my videos. So give those guys a follow. So there was an official statement from the Navy that simply said, this is from the Public Affairs Office, USS Connecticut SSN-22 is in port in San Diego. The submarine remains in a safe and stable condition, which is great. That's what we want to hear. Let's get the submarine repaired and back out to sea. This is still a very capable submarine. I mean, it's damaged right now. Repair the damage, get back out there, back into the fight. Think about how much time it's taking to return this ship to the United States from the South China Sea theater and how long it's going to take to repair. And then let's extrapolate that into what if there was a war and we had multiple ships damaged, if not completely sunk, of course, but the ones that weren't sunk needed to have dry docks to repair them and get them back out in the fight, as what would happen in a shooting conflict with any country, right? How long would it take to get these ships back in the fight? And I think that answer is a very long time, in excess of a year, certainly in the case of the USS Connecticut. And so that tells us that our infrastructure for having a wartime Navy really isn't there. We don't have enough dry docks. We don't have enough shipyards. The shipyards that we have, we need to improve and build more facilities, put more shipyard workers in those if we're going to have a fleet that's combat ready. Because right now, you know, after the first couple of battles, you know, we would have a backlog of ships that are damaged, unable to fight, and are waiting for repair. You're not going to win a war if you can't maintain your fleet in a combat status in a contested peer-to-peer conflict. So that's my spiel about shipyards right there. All right, so that's going to wrap up the naval news segment. If you guys have any more comments about, Russia and Putin, or, the Iranian fast boat swarm tactics that they're, building hundreds of boats a year to man and become more capable, or the USS Connecticut coming back to port, and a big tip of the hat to the crew that made that happen, please leave those comments below. All right, we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching Naval News. My name's Aaron from Subbrief. Have a good one. Hey, it's Aaron from Subbrief. I hope you liked the video. Make sure you click the like button and subscribe to the YouTube page if you haven't already. Also, check out our playlist. We have Naval News playlist. We have Subbrief lecture playlists, which are in-depth analysis into different classes of submarines. And yes, even warships now. We're expanding into warships because we've covered so many of the submarines. I also have a second channel. If you're looking for the gameplay video that used to be a big part of the Subbrief YouTube channel, head on over to OnlySubs. That's right. OnlySubs, little tongue-in-cheek YouTube channel that I've created to put all the gameplay content that you guys love. This is where we just sit back, have fun, do some live stream video games for a couple hours a few times a week, and we put the VODs over here on OnlySubs on the YouTube channel. All right, click like and subscribe over here and have a good time. Leave a comment down below and I'll be sure and read it, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching my video, everybody. Bye.